I'm saying. I think one thing we have been successful about, and just look around this room, we have been successful at educating millions of Americans that global warming is a serious problem. They understand what's causing it. They understand the solution set. Makes good sense economically and for other reasons, job reasons. We've got a terrific job doing that. And I think some of the great social and economic, technological revolutions of our nation, the leaders probably would have been envious of the foundation building blocks we have in place. I mean, look at what Mindy Liberty's doing at Sirius. We're having a big fight now in the Congress around EPA's authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions, and the new Republican leadership is going to go beyond that, and they're going to try to strip away EPA's ability to regulate coal ash and mercury and these other deadly things. And a letter went up to the Congress from 5 or 6 utility leaders. So Peter Darby, the head of PG&E, John Rowe, head of Exelon, the head of Calpine, saying we actually support EPA regulating greenhouse gases. So that's just one piece. You think about the 1,000 campus campaigns on this. You think about what's happening in organized labor with steel workers and others are on the right side. So the foundation pieces are in place. What we have not done is, Alan and Ross, you eloquently said, we haven't knit those strands together into a really powerful movement. And that's the challenge. Now, whenever something like a Tea Party washes over us, part of us may get dismayed if they're on the opposite side of the political equation, but some of us are respectful that they're actually using the tools of democracy in a highly skillful way. And they didn't just show up on election day, the midterm elections. They were showing up in an orchestrated way at those congressional town halls during the August recess break, during the Memorial recess break, systematically for a number of years. And are we doing that? No, we're doing one-off things. We're not really doing powerfully. And just a last thought on the media. We at UCS, we relied over the years, in part for success, on a kind of well-stocked media. That is to say, there were reporters whose beat was energy or the environment. Those reporters are gone as part of cost cutting, as part of the great daily newspaper struggling. And so, the number of Rosses out there are too few. And so we do have to think about social media. We have to think in some ways about television and radio, where even today with social media, most people get their information. One of the neatest projects underway now is by Heidi Cullen, who you may know as the meteorologist on the Weather Channel, which is owned by very conservative ownership, and somehow she talked them into a climate change program on the Weather Channel. And now she's off with an initiative to educate and bring along meteorologists who are not climate scientists and are a very conservative lot. And we even saw, unfortunately, Bruce Schwegler, who we all grew up with here, I think on WBUR television, to sign this, this right-wing op-ed that ran, I think, in the Keene, New Hampshire paper, with 4 other retired meteorologists. Clearly something that's kind of orchestrated. So we're trying to affect the entire economy, every sector. And so that means a much more sophisticated campaign and going into every sector, working with people in those sectors to really lead.
I just want to add one other thing to what Kevin just said, which is, I think also in terms of education, we have to get people to understand that climate change affects everything. It's an environmental issue for sure, and that's what we've been focusing on in this discussion. But it's also an economic issue. I mean, if we could embrace a clean energy revolution, even just weatherization, what we can personally do as well as nationally, create 37 million jobs over the next 20 years. And we're in a jobs crisis. It's a national security issue. Why do we keep going to war in the Middle East? Because that's where the oil is. So if we get off our dependence on foreign oil, we wouldn't have to spend as much money in the military. We wouldn't have to be stuck in wars in the Middle East. So it's a national security issue. Even the Defense Department says, because of climate change, because of migration, it's one of the things that the Defense Department is most concerned about in terms of disruption. So this issue, and it's certainly an education issue in terms of educating, it's something that's affecting everything. And so you can get organized labor involved. You can get even national security experts involved. You can get, certainly, we have to deal with the jobs crisis. This is the best way. The Chinese get this. They're spending $50 billion a year on clean energy development. We're spending 5. And their economy is, a third to a fourth the size of ours. We used to be #1 in solar and wind and renewables in the 1970s. We're now, dropping. We have like 1 out of 10 of the leading companies in those areas. So somehow if we get to understand this affects everything, and there are other ancillary benefits, especially around jobs and national security, I think that's also a way to build this into a larger movement.
So there's more hands popping up in the audience. I want to get to as many of those questions as possible. So the whip cracking moderator in me is going to ask for the